Brill and the Dragators by Peggy Downing. Chapter 2. From Farm to Palace. Brill climbed into the cart and sat on the wooden seat between the two soldiers. The driver cracked his whip and the horses plodded forward. As the wheels rattled on the rutted dirt road, the cart lurched from side to side. Brill tried to swallow the lump in his throat. Newfell asked,
"Ever seen the palace, Brill?"
No, sir."
"It's huge. I haven't ever been inside." "You're lucky. I wish I could live in the palace."
The other soldier smiled. "Palatial Island is the most beautiful place in Exitorn." Brill pointed. "There's my house." Newfell said,
"No need to take anything. You'll get whatever you need at the palace."
"Probably silk clothes and gold combs," added Algo. Brill jumped to the ground. His heart pounded as he ran to the door and threw it open. His mother stopped sweeping. "Why are you home so early?" Brill threw his arms around his mother's frail frame. "What's wrong?" she asked. He tried to swallow his tears so that he could talk.
I have to go to the palace,"
he gasped. "When?"
"Right now. Oh, Mother, I don't want to go."
Grandfather stirred the fire with a poker.
"That's an evil place. He who lives only for pleasure starves his soul."
Brill saw the tears glistening in his mother's eyes, but she spoke calmly. "What are you going to do with the palace?"
"I'll be Prince Grosstair's companion."
"You must do the best job you can. Perhaps you'll see your father. Try to send word to me. I know it's hard to get anyone to carry a message. No one wants to be accused of spying."
"If I can, I'll send a letter."
"I'll pray for you every day," said his mother.
"How will you do all the work on the farm?"
"Grandfather and I will manage."
"Who will find Curly when she gets lost?"
"We'll take good care of Curly. Don't worry." They heard a loud knocking. Grandfather hobbled to the door while Brill hugged his mother again. "Our love will travel all the miles," she whispered, kissing his forehead. Brill broke away as the door opened. Newfell spoke in a gruff voice.
"Time to go."
Brill swallowed his tears, said goodbye to his mother and grandfather, and rejoined the men on the cart. He tried not to think of how long it might be before he'd see his mother again. He didn't want the soldiers to know how much he hurt inside.
"Don't look so sad,"
Newfell said.
"Most boys would give anything to live like a prince."
"I worry about how Mother will do all the work on the farm. Grandfather can't get around very well." Newfell lowered his voice.
"Don't talk about your mother at the palace. The Emperor wants his servants to concentrate on their new jobs. You've received a great honor. Forget about your past."
I'll try, sir," answered Brill. But he'd never forget his mother. As they bounced along the rough roads through villages and patches of woods and over bridges and hills, Brill let his mind imagine how things might be. He'd find his father, and together they'd escape from Palatial Island. They'd buy a cart and horses and hurry back to Mother and Grandfather. They'd all go to a far country where they could be together. It was a comforting dream, though his practical side pointed out the difficulties. Even if he found his father, how would they get off Palatial Island? It was surrounded by a wide moat filled with water and fierce Dragators. Brill told himself, "If I find Father, he'll find a way for us to go back to Mother." But if there is a way, why hasn't he come back sooner? They stopped at a small inn for lunch. The men ate heartily, dipping hard rolls into the beef and vegetable stew and chewing noisily. Algo nudged Newfell. "We aren't setting a very good example for Brill here. We should be using our best palace manners." Newfell laughed.
"From what I hear, Emperor Maine eats like a starved pig."
Algo cried, "Newfell, take care! When Brill gets to the palace, he'll tell the prince what you said. And the next thing you'll know, you'll be chewed up by hungry Dragators." Newfell rubbed his hands together nervously.
Brill, I was only joking. I didn't mean to sound disrespectful. Please forget what I said.
Newful pulled a gold coin from his pocket and pushed it towards Brill.
We're friends. Here's a little something to seal our friendship.
You don't have to pay me.
Brill pushed the coin back to him.
I won't say anything to get you in trouble.
Brill forced himself to eat a little food, hoping it might fill the empty hole in his stomach. But the hollow remained. It was from fear, not hunger. The food sat in his stomach, a hard, uncomfortable lump. They climbed back into the cart and Brill felt his lump of lunch bounce around. He felt sick, but he fought down the queasy feeling, ordering his stomach to calm down.
You look a little green,
said Newful.
I'm all right.
Better sit by the edge, then you can hang your head out if anything comes up.
Brill changed places with him. He wished he could escape the lurching cart. That evening they slept on the floor in the main room of a roadside inn. Newful asked for a blanket for each of them. Brill didn't sleep. The stone floor was hard, a stranger mumbled in his sleep, and the cold draughts blew under the door. Brill's tears fell on the old stained blanket. He longed for home. The next afternoon they reached Palatial Island. "There's the palace." Algo pointed to the stone towers rising against the blue sky. The narrow streets widened into a boulevard between green lawns and trees. The boulevard led to the drawbridge. The huge castle was surrounded by shrubs and trees and flower gardens. Brill wondered if his father worked there. Finding his father was his one ray of hope. The soldiers stopped their cart by a guardhouse, where they handed their permit to the head guard. They were waved on. A line of 12 soldiers with swords stood on either side of the road. As they crossed the drawbridge, Brill looked down and shivered. A Dragator lifted his long, scaly neck and opened his huge mouth, showing long, pointed teeth and a smoking breath. Another Dragator lay floating near the shore, and Brill guessed he was over 15 feet long. Algo whispered, "They say a Dragator's breath can cook a man in an instant."
"Makes it handy for the Dragator. He can roast his meal before he chews it,"
added Newful. Algo said, "Watch your step, Brill. If the Emperor gets angry with you, he'll toss you to the Dragators."
"Ah, don't scare the boy like that,"
said Newful. "It's better for him to know what dangers he's facing so that he can be alert," argued Algo. Brill's queasy stomach gurgled, protesting the fear signals from his brain. Newfell went on talking, as if to make Brill forget his fears.
"The water in the moat comes from the river. Gates control the amount of water and keep the Dragators from escaping."
The cart climbed the hill toward the palace and stopped in the circular driveway. Newfell advised Brill,
"Show your summons to the housekeeper. He'll show you where to go."
"Thanks for the ride."
Brill pulled the summons from his pocket and jumped off the cart. The dour-faced doorkeeper stared at him.
"What does the likes of you want here?"
Brill handed him the summons. He had a sudden wild hope the man would send him home. It would be a long walk, but he'd find his way. The man's manner changed abruptly.
"Master Brill, the prince has been waiting for you."
He called for another servant.
"Take Master Brill to the prince's wing."
"Yes, sir,"
the servant answered. He turned to Brill.
"Follow me."
Brill's eyes grew wide with wonder as he stared at the gold columns, crystal chandeliers, and elaborate scenes painted on the walls. He followed his guide up a white stone staircase and down a carpeted corridor. The servant knocked on a carved door. A tall, thin man with a stern face answered.
"This is Brill,"
explained the servant, handing the man the summons. The man frowned as he looked at Brill's shabby clothes.
"Follow me. My name is Meopa. I'm chief steward for the prince. If you have questions about proper procedure, it's best to ask me. Don't bother the prince with questions and don't depend on servants of lesser ranks to know the right answers."
Brill nodded. Meopar opened a door.
"Prince Groster, your new companion has arrived.
The prince sat on a huge, upholstered chair. It needed to be large to hold the prince's weight. Brill had never seen anyone as fat.
Come closer.
Prince Grosstare commanded. Brill approached his chair.
What's the difference between ants and spiders?
Well, spiders spin webs and...
No, I want the answer you put on your test.
Oh, you mean the one about spiders eat bugs and ants bug eaters? The prince chuckled.
I really like that one. When we go on picnics in the forest, we bring soldiers to keep the ants away from our food.
Brill had the sinking feeling his clever scheme to look stupid had led him to the palace. Prince Grosstare continued.
I told the fellow who was correcting the test to show me the ones who had originality. I didn't want some brain who knows everything as my companion. He'd be a deadly bore. I picked you, Brill, because you can make me laugh.
Brill gulped. He had never thought of himself as a comedian. End of chapter 2.